Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel in pronunciation drill project. And then my name is Siti Amira Luthfiyah. I am studying at BSI University, majoring in English department. And in this video, I have another project. There are about four parts in this project. So let's start from the part 1. Read the text correctly. You don't have to be French to enjoy a decent red wine. Charles Jocelyn de Cruz used to tell his foreign guests whenever he entertained them in Paris. But you do have to be French to recognize one, he would add with a laugh. After a lifetime in the French diplomatic corps, the Count de Cruz lived with his wife in an elegant townhouse on Quai Voltaire. He was a likable man, cultivated of course with a well-deserved reputation as a generous host and amusing raconteur. This evening's guests were all European and all equally convinced that immigration was at the root of Europe's problems. Charles de Cruz hid nothing. He had always concealed his contempt for such ideas, and in any case he had never much cared for this particular guest. The first of the red Bordeaux was being served with a veal, and one of the guests turned to the Cruz. "Come on, Charles, it's simple arithmetic. Nothing to do with race or color. You must have had bags of experience of this sort of thing. What do you say?" "Yes, General Bags." Next, part 2. Read this word correctly. A pen, a postcard, a pencil, a passport, a pin, a passenger, a pear, a policeman, Peter, a newspaper, puppy, a pepper pot, Paris, a spoon, empty, helpful, stop talking, upstairs, played, brushed, waited, cleaned, laughed, painted, snowed, pushed, shouted, closed, watched, wanted, filled, danced, planned, studied, walked, departed. And then part 3. Read and compare between two words. Pin, pin, pen, pen, pear, bear, cap, cap, pop, pop, puppy, bobby, tor, door, tart, dart, cart, cart, right, right, train, drain, trunk, drum. Fourth part. Read the long text correctly. She was walking lazily, but the first April sun was directly overhead. Her umbrella blocked its rays, but nothing blocked the head. The sort of raw, wild head that crushes you with its energy. A few buffalo were tethered under coconuts, browsing the perch verges. Occasionally a car went past, leaving its treads in the melting pitch like the wake of a ship at sea. Otherwise it was quiet, and she saw no one. In her long white Sunday dress you might have taken Ginny Narin for 14 or 15. In fact, she was 12, a happy, uncomplicated child with a nature as open as the red hibiscus that decorated her black, waist-laying hair. Generation earlier, her family had come to Trinidad from India as overseers on the sugar plantation. Her father had some success through buying and clearing land around Rio Cristalino and planting it with coffee. On the dusty verge 20 yards ahead of Ginny, a car pulled up. She had noticed it cruise by once before, but she didn't recognize it and could not make out the driver through its dark windows, themselves as black as its gleaming paint were. As she walked past it, the driver's glass started to open. "Hello, Ginny," she heard behind her. She paused and turned. A slight color rose beneath her dusky skin. Rafi Tirjani was tall and lean, and always well dressed. His black eyes and large white teeth flashed in the sunlight as he spoke. Everyone in Rio Cristalino knew Rafi. Ginny often heard her unmarried sisters talk ruefully of him, of how, if only their father were alive and they still had land, one of them might marry him. And then they would squabble over who it might be and laugh at Ginny because he was too simple for any man to want. "How do you know my name, Rafi?" she asked with a thrill. "How do you know mine? Everyone knows your name. You are Mr. Kinjani's son." "Right, and where are you going, Ginny?" She hesitated and looking down at the ground again. "To chapel." she said with a faint smile. But Ginny, good Hindus go to the temple. His rich, cultured voice was gently mocking as he added with a laugh. Or maybe the temple pandits aren't your taste in color. She blushed more deeply at the reference to Father Olivier. She didn't know how to reply. It was true that she liked the young French priest, with his funny accent and blue eyes, but she had been going to the Catholic chapel for months before he arrived. She loved its cheerful hymn and its simple creed of one God, so different from those miserable Hindu gods who squabbled with each other like her sister at home. But added to that, the vulgarity of Rafi's remark bewildered her because his family were known for their breeding. People always said that Rafi would be a man of honor like his father. Rafi looked suddenly grave. His dark skin seemed even darker. It may be that he regretted his words. Possibly he saw the confusion in Ginny's wet brown eyes. In any case, he didn't wait for an answer. "Can I offer you a lift to chapel in my 21st birthday present?" he asked, putting his sunglasses back on. She noticed how thick their frames were. Real gold, she thought, like the big fat watch on his wrist. "It's a Mercedes from Papa. Do you like it?" he added nonchalantly. From the shade of her umbrella, Ginny peered up at a small leaden cloud that hung motionless above them. The sun was beating down mercilessly, and there was an urge in the air, an overpowering sense of growth. With a handkerchief, she wiped the sweat from her forehead. Rafi gave a tug at his collar. "It's air-conditioned, Ginny, and you won't be late for chapel," he continued, reading her mind. But chapel must have been the last thing on Rafi's mind when Ginny, after a moment's hesitation, accepted his offer, for he drove her instead a quiet sugar field outside town, and there, with a Mercedes concealed among the sugar cans, he introduced himself into her. Ginny was in daze. Young as she was, she barely understood what was happening to her. The beat of calypso filled her ears, and the sugar cans towered over her as the cold draught from the air conditioner played against her knees. Afterwards, clutching the wretched flower that had been torn from her hair, she lay among the tall, sweet-smelling cans and sobbed until the brief tropical twilight turned to starry night. But she told no one, not even Father Olivier. 2 weeks later, the little market town of Rio Cristalino was alive with gossip. Rafi Kirjani had been promised the hand of Sunita Morpalani. Like the Kirjanis, the Morpalanis were an established Indian family, one of the wealthiest in the Caribbean. But while the Kirjanis were diplomats, the Morpalanis were a commercial family. They had made their fortune in retailing long before the collapse in oil prices had emptied their customers' pockets, and now Morpalani stores were scattered throughout Trinidad and some of the other islands. Prudently, they had diversified into banking and insurance, and as a result, their influence was felt at the highest level. It was a benevolent influence, of course, never abused, for people always say the Morpalanis were a respectable family and well above reproach. They had houses in Port of Spain, Tobago, and Barbados, as well as in England and India, but their main residence was a magnificent, sprawling, colonial-style mansion just to the north of Rio Cristalino. The arranged marriage would be the social event of the following year. When Genius heard of Rafa's engagement, the loathing she had conceived for him grew into a sort of numb hatred. She was soon haunted by a longing to repay that heartless, arrogant brute. She would give anything to humiliate him, to see that leering, conceited grin wiped from his face. But outwardly she was unmoved. On weekdays she went to school, on Sundays she went still to Father Olivier's afternoon service. "Girl, you sure does have a lot to confess to that Wethy," her mother would say to her each time she came home from chapel. "He is not Wethy, he is a man of God." "That's as maybe, child, but don't forget he does be a man first." The months passed and she did not see Rafi again, and then it rained. All through August, the rain hardly stopped. It rattled persistently on the galvanized roofs until you thought you would go mad with the noise. And if it stopped, the air was as sticky as treacle, and you prayed for it to rain again. Then, one day in October, towards the end of the wet season, when Jean's family were celebrating her only brother's 18th birthday, something happened that she had been dreading for weeks. She was lying in the hammock in the balcony playing with her 6-year-old nephew Finny. Suddenly Penny cried out, "Ginny, why are you so fat?" Throughout the little frame house all celebration stopped. On the balcony Korea's eyes were turned upon Ginny, and you could see what the boy meant. "God have mercy on you, Virginia, watch the shape of your belly," cried Miss Nerin, exploding with indignation and pulling her daughter indoors, away from the praying neighbors' ears. Her voice was loud and hard, and there was a blackness in her eyes, like the blackness of the skies before thunder. How could she have been so blind? She cursed herself for it, and harsh questions burst from her lips. That's all about the project. Thank you very much for your attention. If I made any mistake, please tell me. Thank you and see you.